Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Glasgow Times Sports Podcast, normally recorded in our studio at the Bishopbriggs Media Centre, currently recorded from our volunteers' homes. To keep in touch with us, use our social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, which are all at Q and Review. That's CUEANDREVIEW. Or get in touch via information@qandreview.com. That's information@CUEANDREVIEW.com. Please like and share our podcasts and give us any constructive feedback.
Evening Times Sport, October 11. Lost Ryan Kent, earning Rangers' spot on name alone. Report by David Irvin. Rangers hero Brian Laudrup reckons Ryan Kent is being selected on his name alone, as he demanded the winger improve his performances under Giovanni Van Bronckhorst. Kent was on the bench against St Mirren at the weekend and given a 30-minute run-out, with many expecting the winger to have been rested ahead of the Liverpool clash. Laudrup is among those expecting Kent to come straight back into the team for the Champions League encounter, but warned that may come through his reputation rather than his recent form. Writing in the Daily Mail column, Laudrup commented, "I'd be very surprised if Ryan Kent did not return to the lineup after being left out against St Mirren, but it's clear Van Bronckhorst is trying to stir a reaction." His comments last Friday about needing more from Kent were interesting. "I cannot disagree. I have spoken so much about the winger's ability. We can all look back at big games in Europe over past seasons when he has been a huge influence. Right now, though, he's perhaps playing more on his name than anything else." Laudrup is still certain of Kent's unquestionable talent, but has claimed the winger has looked lost in some games this season. The Ibrox hero reckons Kent has not been positioning himself correctly to threaten opposition teams and makes the wrong decisions in key moments. While Laudrup is not certain why Kent seems to have hit a patch of struggling performances, he appeared to back Van Bronckhorst's decision to try a different approach with the player. He continued, "Van Bronckhorst said he's had conversations with Kent about the positions he takes up on the pitch, and so on. That's notable. I've said before that Kent has become a little bit lost in terms of how he sees games. He makes wrong decisions and is not getting into enough areas where he can actually hurt teams. It's such a shame because we know the depth of Kent's talent. Whether it's about confidence or something else, Van Bronckhorst has decided now is the time to try a slightly different approach with him." Report by David Irvin. Evening Times Sport, October 11. RB Leipzig manager Marco Rose on why Salzburg win over Celtic at Parkhead is irrelevant. Report by Matthew Lindsay. Marco Rose was the manager of Red Bull's Salzburg when the Austrian club beat Celtic 2-1 at Parkhead back in 2018 to finish their Europa League group with maximum points. But the German, who took over at RB Leipzig last month, believes overseeing that hard-fought away win will not be of any help to him when the Bundesliga club take on their Premiership rivals in the Champions League in Glasgow tonight. Rose expects Ange Postecoglou's side will present completely different challenges to the Brendan Rodgers team that Salzburg faced in the East End 4 years ago, and is preparing for an entirely different match. He said, I can't take anything from that game. It's a new game, a new strategy. The whole game has to be about how we focus and doing our best. We just have to rely on the fact that it will be in this excellent stadium with amazing fans and a great atmosphere. We will be doing all we can. Our young players will each bring their own experience to the game. We will be encouraging them to do their best, but also to look for what they can exploit, to take their chances, to enjoy the game, and make the most of their experience in this wonderful stadium. Leipzig won 3-1 in the Group F match against Celtic at the Red Bull Arena last week, and can take a giant stride towards the last 16 of the competition with an away victory at Parkhead this evening. Continued Rose. Of course, we took the game as a preparation for this week. We're looking exactly at the setup we used and how we can improve on details. Victories are always sweet, and of course we want to win, but we also have to make sure we enjoy the game. It's the joy of the game and the winning, and we'll work towards that. Meanwhile, Andre Silva, the Portuguese striker who scored 2 goals in Saxony last Wednesday night, has admitted he is determined to score against Celtic at Parkhead as well. He said, "The key is to try to make the decisions we made in Leipzig. We know that it will not be so easy because of the environment here and the fans, but the key is to be better than them and to be alert from the first minute to the last. It is never about only me. It is about the team, and what we need to do is score more goals than Celtic to win. As a team, we need to be prepared. The environment will be difficult. We will need to be compact and to put in all the power we showed in the last game and in our last training to win. But I am always confident that I will score. Always in my head, I imagine the ball going into the net. I think as a player, I love to be in this environment. I love to be in this stadium. This type of game, a Champions League night, it is for this that we are here. It is what we dream of as a kid. The feeling that I have is only good, and I hope that gives me the right way to score more." Report by Matthew Lindsay. Evening Times Sport, October 11. Celtic and Rangers both receive UEFA fines. Report by David Irvin. Celtic have been issued a UEFA fine over an anti-monarchy banner displayed ahead of the Champions League clash with Shakhtar Donetsk. A banner which read "F the Crown" was draped from the away enclosure at the Champions League fixture. Another banner displayed by travelling supporters read, "Sorry for your loss, Michael Fagan." The displays came as Celtic players wore black armbands as a mark of respect, but UEFA confirmed that no minute's silence would be held in the first match back after the death of Queen Elizabeth. Domestic fixtures had been called off, but European fixtures were given the green light to be played. UEFA have now dealt the club a £13,000 fine over the displays. The governing body decision brands the display as containing a message not fit for a sports event, that is, a provocative banner. It comes as the club were also fined after fireworks were set off in the clash with Real Madrid. They were fined £3,730 over that incident. Pyrotechnics appeared to be set off alongside a huge banner display at one corner of the stadium. Meanwhile, Rangers have also been hit with a £12,000 fine from UEFA for the improper conduct of the team. Competition chiefs have ordered the Ibrox club to pay £12,300 over the charge, which was cited over Article 15 of UEFA regulations. Giovanni Van Bronckhorst's men received 6 yellow cards in the fixture, with James Sands sent off for 2 bookable offences against Napoli. John Lundstrom, James Tavernier, Borna Barisic and Alfredo Morelos were all cautioned in the match, alongside Sands' 2 yellows. Rangers fell to a 3-0 defeat in the match. Report by David Irvin. Evening Times Sport, October 12. 3 Celtic burning issues as Champions League journey comes to an end. Report by Ewan Payton. Champions League journey over. Celtic waited 5 years for a taste of Champions League football. RB Leipzig essentially ended that journey for another season. The Bundesliga side were too good on the night for the Scottish champions in what proved to be another disappointing evening in the competition for the Hoops. That's not to say Celtic played badly, far from it. However, they were certainly taught some harsh lessons by the Germans, particularly in the final third. Ange Postecoglou will use this experience as a learning curve for both himself and his players going forward. Celtic prop up Group F, but they still have a chance to make the Europa League knockout rounds, albeit it will be a tough ask as they trail Shakhtar by 4 points. Missed chances rued once again. Celtic's Champions League campaign has been marred with missed opportunities. Postecoglou and the rest of the Celtic faithful will be left to wonder what could have been if they had taken some of these golden chances created in all 4 of the group games so far. In this match alone, Dazan Maeda, Kyogo, Georgios Giacomakis and Matt O'Reilly all had superb openings in which they probably should have found the net. It just wasn't to be for the Hoops. Over the piece though, there's little doubt that had Celtic been more clinical, then they probably wouldn't be bottom of the table. Maeda performance under the microscope. Much has been made of the Japanese attacker's performance of late. He came under particular criticism in the wake of the Hoops' loss to Leipzig in Germany last week, with many fans accusing him of lacking the necessary quality to play at European level. He missed a huge opportunity inside a minute in this one. Lil Abada floated a wonderful cross for the inside forward, but he could not divert his header on target. While it was a big miss, Maeda was by far Celtic's sharpest attacking threat during the first half. After the break, he had another good chance on the half volley. He failed to work the keeper again, which is perhaps down to a lack of confidence. His attacking threat was there, but he put in his defensive shift as well. Report by Ewan Payton. Evening Times Sport, October 12th. Carter Vickers makes Europa League pledge. Report by Matthew Lindsay. Celtic captain Cameron Carter Vickers insisted the Parkhead club can still qualify for the Europa League after a home defeat to RB Leipzig ended their hopes of reaching the Champions League knockout rounds. Carter Vickers and his teammates performed well in their 4th Group F match in the East End of Glasgow, but they failed to convert any of the scoring opportunities which they created in the final third, and paid the price for that failing. Timo Werner broke the deadlock with 15 minutes remaining when he headed home and substitute Emil Forsberg struck with 6 minutes of regulation time left to ensure the visitors triumphed 2-0. Ange Postecoglou's side cannot finish second in their section and go through to the last 16 of Europe's elite club competition for the 4th time in their history as a result of the defeat. But Celtic can still finish third in their group if they beat Shakhtar Donetsk, who held holders Real Madrid to a 1-1 draw in Poland last night, and then win or draw their final outing in Spain at the start of next month. Carter Vickers, who donned the captain's armband in the absence of the injured Callum McGregor, admitted that his team's failure to net had cost him dear, but vowed to give his all in their final 2 outings. He told BT Sport, "It was disappointing not to get a result. I thought for large parts of the game we played quite well, but it's Champions League football, and you need to take your chances. It is disappointing. This is a high-level football. You need to capitalise when you are on top, and if you don't, it can be difficult." Asked if Celtic could make it through to the Europa League, Carter Vickers added, "I'm not too sure. We need to keep working hard on the path we are going, and hopefully we'll get there. We have 2 games left, and we want 2 positive results. Hopefully we can get there." Report by Matthew Lindsay. Evening Times Sport, October 12. Celtic fans unveil banner in response to UEFA fine. Report by Ewan Payton. Celtic fans have responded to the club's UEFA fine for displaying an anti-monarchy banner last month. It was matchday 4 of the Champions League group stages as the Hoops looked to earn a much-needed 3 points against RB Leipzig. Earlier it was announced that the club had been fined £13,000 by European football's governing body for a banner reading "F the Crown", which was unveiled in Warsaw for Celtic's group game against Shakhtar Donetsk in September, the team's first match since the death of Queen Elizabeth. The governing body decision branded the display as containing a message not fit for a sports event, that is, a provocative banner. However, a section of the Celtic fans appeared to respond with another banner last night. Held aloft during the second half of the match, its message read, "Against hunger and the crown." Prior to the match, supporters group the Green Brigade announced a collection for their latest food drive appeal, one of many ongoing initiatives the group is involved in to aid food banks in Scotland. Report by Ewan Payton. Evening Times Sport, October 12. Football Association of Ireland apologise after pro-IRA chants. Report by David Irvin. The Football Association of Ireland have apologised after players appeared to chant a pro-IRA song following the win over Scotland. Vera Pauw's Republic of Ireland side reached the World Cup for the first time with a win over Scotland at Hampden last night. But a video clip of celebrations was shared online which appeared to show Ireland players singing a pro-IRA chant in the changing rooms. The FAI and POW offered apologies after the celebrations, with a statement released today. The FAI statement read, "The Football Association of Ireland and the Republic of Ireland women's national team manager Vera Pauw apologise for any offence caused by a song sung by players in the Ireland dressing room after the Women's World Cup qualifying playoff win over Scotland at Hampden Park." Manager Pow added, "We apologise from the bottom of our hearts to anyone who has been offended by the content of the post-match celebrations after we had just qualified for the World Cup. We will review this with the players and remind them of their responsibilities in this regard. I have spoken with players this morning, and we are sorry collectively for any hurt caused. There can be no excuse for that." Report by David Irvin. Evening Times Sport, October 12. Hibs Tavares targeted with alleged racist abuse. Report by David Irvin. Hibs Jair Tavares was last night targeted with alleged racist abuse during Dundee United's win. The midfielder appeared to be trying to speed up play with his team 1-0 down in the latter stages when the alleged abuse came from a supporter inside Tannadice. A short clip shared by Livingston assistant Marvin Bartley includes the alleged racist shout. Bartley, who is also Equality and Diversity Advisor to the Scottish FA, called out the alleged racist abuse on Twitter. He slammed the person responsible as he urged action to be taken over racist incidents in Scotland. Commented Bartley, "I tried and tried to convince myself that I had misheard this, but after listening multiple times, I am unfortunately right. To hear someone shout this and abuse someone for their skin colour breaks my heart. We are now at a point where either the authorities do something about it, or they simply tell us they don't care. I wish I could explain the pain and heartache this sort of stuff causes, but it's impossible to put it into words. My heart genuinely goes out to Jair. All he was trying to do was his job, and getting the ball to speed up play. There is no chance that the people around him did not hear the scumbag who has shouted this. I hope the ones who did report it to the club will get onto the SFA and SPFL, who need to come down hard, because this is as clear as it gets. We cannot allow these people to ruin our beautiful game, or ruin the reputation of our country I am glad to call home. Nights like this are hard to deal with, and I was only listening. It was aimed at Jair. If I can leave you with one thing, if you still fail to get it, look in the mirror and imagine the person looking back at you is not accepted by some because of the colour of your skin. Hibs have now called for an investigation to be launched into the alleged racist incident. A Hibs statement added, Hibs FC are aware of an incident in our Singe Premiership match with Dundee United involving a racist comment directed towards one of our players. The incident took place in the latter stages of the second half as the player went to retrieve the ball that had gone out of play. Hibs FC have made contact with Dundee United regarding this and would strongly support any investigation into this matter. We encourage anyone with information that could help identify the individual to come forward. Racist or discriminatory behaviour towards any player, official, staff member or supporter is completely unacceptable and has no place in our game or wider society. At Hibs FC, we believe whatever your race or background, we are all together. And as a club with players, staff and supporters from numerous different backgrounds, we stand in solidarity with those affected by such antisocial comments. There will be no further comment at this time. Report by David Irvin. Evening Times Sport, October 12. He's got a point, says McCoist. Report by David Irvin. Ali McCoist has delivered a cheeky dig at Celtic after fellow TalkSport pundit Jason Cundy branded the Parkhead club an embarrassment in the Champions League. The Rangers hero could not resist a light-hearted jibe at his former rivals as he weighed in on Cundy's blunt assessment of Scottish football in Europe. Speaking as Celtic fell to a 2-0 defeat to RB Leipzig last night, Cundy said, "What's going on with Scottish football in the Champions League? Celtic, they really are an embarrassment. They give it the big one, saying they should be in the Champions League naturally. They must be embarrassed themselves. The Celtic fans, they must be. It's not the toughest group in the world. Yes, they've got Real Madrid, but there's tougher groups. They were at home today, getting humbled." And McCoist admitted Cundy has a point, as he offered a more balanced take on Celtic's struggles in the competition this year. Celtic's 2-0 Leipzig loss comes after a 3-1 defeat in Germany last week, a draw with Shakhtar Donetsk in Poland, and a 3-0 loss to Real Madrid at Parkhead. The results leave Celtic bottom of the group with just 1 point. Reacting to Cundy's comments, McCoist explained, "He's got a point. It's not like him, is it? He's unbelievable. I only watched the highlights of that game. Listen, they're a good side, Leipzig, but it's the story of Celtic's campaign so far. They can't buy a goal. I thought they played well for 45 minutes against Madrid. They had chances, and they should have taken the lead. Most of the games they played, they should have taken the lead, but that's the difference at that level. You get absolutely nailed for it. I think they hit the post at 0-0 last night. I think they hit the bar at 0-0 last night. And then with 15 minutes to go, sucker punch. That is the difference at that level. Simple as that." Report by David Irvin. Evening Times Sport, October 12. Missed chances, the story of Celtic's Champions League season. Report by Gavin McCafferty. Celtic manager Ange Postecoglou admitted it was the same old story, as his side's hopes of Champions League progress ended with defeat by RB Leipzig. The Scottish champions again missed a series of chances, as they fell to a 2-0 home defeat against the German side. Goals in the final 15 minutes from Timo Werner and Emil Forsberg left Celtic with 1 point from 4 matches and with no chance of finishing in the top 2 in Group F. Matt O'Reilly and Greg Taylor hit the frame of the goal in quick succession, and Dazen Maeda, Kyogo Furuhashi and substitute Georgios Giacomakis all missed good chances. Celtic have only scored 2 goals in their campaign, despite creating a healthy number of chances in each match. Postecoglou said, "I thought we showed all the effort and endeavour to try to win a game of football, but, as we have found at this level, if you don't take your chances, it's very hard to convert all of that into a result. It's not frustration I feel. I just want the players to get the rewards for their endeavours. I'm trying to tell us to play in a certain way to be successful, but we know at this level that if you don't take your opportunities, then it's going to hurt you at some stage. It's been the story of our campaign so far, a lot of missed chances. I'm disappointed for our players and supporters that they haven't had their rewards." Postecoglou feels the occasion makes it more challenging to put their chances away, and he said, "It's the hardest part of the game. It's why clubs spend hundreds of millions of pounds on players who do that. It's not as simple as people think. Just take your opportunities. It's about experience and composure at this level. The fine lines of the stretches that are involved at playing at the highest level of club football. Only experience can get your players to hopefully feel more comfortable in those situations. We have been a bit unlucky too. I mean, we have hit the post twice in the same sequence, when on any other day that could have gone in. Celtic will need to beat Shakhtar Donetsk at home in 2 weeks' time, and then get at least a point against Real Madrid in the Bernabeu to finish third and reach the Europa League and avoid elimination from European competition before the World Cup. Postecoglou added, "We have just got to keep going. Irrespective of whether we continue or not, we have 2 more Champions League games that we want to keep using as a platform to improve as a football team and improve our players. The more they have exposure at this level, I think the better equipped we will be at this level." Postecoglou allayed fears over the injury that forced Lille Abada off late in the first half, and said, "I think it's nothing too serious. From what the physios have told us, it's just a dead leg. It's an extra day to recover before Saturday, so he may still be available before then." Leipzig manager Marco Rose felt his side's victory was built on being able to regroup following Celtic's first half pressure. He said, "It was an excellent game in an excellent stadium with amazing fans. We got into the spirit of things without getting too deep in the game. After 20 minutes, we welcomed Celtic onto us and the stadium got louder. We talked about a few things at the break, and I thought we were very quickly dominating in the second half." Report by Gavin McCafferty. Evening Times Sport, October 12. Van Bronckhorst in key Rangers team selection statement. Report by Chris Jack. Giovanni Van Bronckhorst insists he will have no issue making a key selection call and leaving one of his Rangers strikers out against Liverpool in a make-or-break Champions League clash. The Ibrox boss elected to go with Alfredo Morelos during the defeat at Anfield last week as the Colombian returned to the starting lineup on the European stage. But he had to watch on from the bench on Saturday as Antonio Cholak took his tally for the campaign to 13 goals, with a third successive brace in the win over St Mirren. The decision over who leads the line will be one of the most important that Van Bronckhorst makes ahead of the return fixture with Jurgen Klopp's side. Van Bronckhorst said, "They are both strikers, but their strengths and their way of playing is a bit different. They are both natural goal scorers, that's for sure. So for me it's always a case of seeing what we need in games, who is in form, who do we think will be the big option. That's not only for the striker option, but for the other 10 who are playing. I think it's a normal process in the days prior to a game. We are going to start with 11 players who I think are capable of getting a good result. You pick your 11. You sometimes have players who need a one-on-one conversation. Sometimes you don't, because you concentrate on the first 11. I think it's a normal process, not only for the striker, but also for the goalkeeper, your defence and midfield. For me, it's no problem. It's about taking a decision together with your staff and then communicating it to the players. Prepare them for the task ahead, your tactics, but also what we can expect from Liverpool. That's my job, and it's also a part that I like." Report by Chris Jack. Sport, October 14. Willie Collum sold on godsend VAR. Report by James Kearney. Willie Collum has waited a long time for a second look at Scottish football. The referee first encountered VAR back in 2019, when the technology was first introduced in European football. He took charge of a Champions League fixture while the review system was still in its infancy, and now that it is finally arriving on our shores, Scotland's top referee can't wait to use it. He explained, "There is not a referee in the world who doesn't want the opportunity to see a decision again. That will be a godsend to all of us, that opportunity to have a safety net and know that if I make an error, then I've got the chance to see it again. I won't be worrying about what sports scene will show on Saturday night, or what someone will text you. But the key principle is the same. The referee must try to get the decision right on the field. A great deal of our training at the Scottish FA is about getting the decision right. As a referee, you don't want to need to use VAR. It's great coming off when you haven't used VAR, because the prime focus is to get the decision right on the field. VAR will be in use for the first time during Hibernian's home fixture against St Johnstone next week. The technology has been brought in ahead of schedule, having originally been penciled in to be introduced after the Qatar World Cup. Although not everyone is convinced, it will be plain sailing from here on in. Indeed, Scottish FA Chief Executive Ian Maxwell predicted earlier this week that the first 3 months of using the video review system would be horrendous. Perhaps, unsurprisingly, Crawford Allen, the SFA's head of referee operations, and the key figure in the implementation process, feels differently, as he urged supporters to be patient with the officials. He said, "I think, based on experience from every other country, we are not naive enough to think there won't be a few challenges. We might take a few seconds longer to do a clip review than they might do at FIFA for the World Cup, because they have the best referees who have been doing VAR forever. If I give you a driving license example, the guys have just been given their driving license and they've been passed by FIFA. If you drive a car more often after you pass your test, you get more comfortable with the machinery around you. You get better at using it. That's just a natural part of human nature. It is going to take a few weeks to develop that skill to a higher level than just being able to drive. We are going to become increasingly confident. Some officials could feel slightly undermined that their decisions are being challenged by fellow referees making use of the technology. And while Collum admits that trips to the pitchside monitor will not exactly be something he looks forward to, he is adamant that the most important factor is that the correct decisions are reached. He explained, "Refereeing is like playing. It's all about confidence. If you're going through a bad patch making mistakes, your confidence is low. It's harder. If you're going through a good spell, your confidence is high. The reality is, think how low your confidence would be if your 3 decisions are wrong in the game and you don't have VAR. You've made those 3 errors. Can you imagine that for the rest of the week?" That's why I emphasise my colleagues at the SFA and their training is still about coaching and positioning, about the interpretation of the offsides and fouls to be able to make the decision at the right time. I've been there on many occasions where sometimes you're just not in the right position through no fault of your own. Maybe there's a handball and you're behind it, and it's just impossible for any of us to see it. The confidence thing is a good point. No referee wants to go to the monitor 3 times, but I'd rather go to the monitor 3 times in the one game than have zero confidence, having made 3 errors in a game and they cannot be corrected. I don't want to have to go to the monitor, but it's that safety net knowing if it happens, which it often can, I'll be able to get a go out. There might well be a safety net for Colm and his colleagues, but the 43-year-old adds that there will be an increase in expectations too. He said, "It would save you being the headline on a Monday." A colleague of mine from another European country told me very quickly the media changed. It wasn't about the refereeing scandal on a Monday. It's the fact the decision was corrected. That was the big thing. But I'm going to be a wee bit controversial and say attention will now turn to the VAR. If you're sitting in a room with screens, people will expect us to get it right. That's why you need to understand it's not an easy situation sitting in here. I went to South Korea in 2017 when it was being trialled at the Under-20 World Cup. I really did have a vision of sitting watching a game of football in luxury and having a coffee and saying, "That maybe didn't look right. Can you rewind that for us?" The pressure you're under in the VAR is intense. I know from operating in the VAR room, you're exhausted. It's very mentally stressful. It's not the same physical effect on you, but mentally it's very stressful. We don't just come here and sit back. But there will be less forgiveness if the guy sitting in here doesn't get that right, and I think that's just being honest. Report by James Kearney. Evening Times Sport, October 14. McTominay praises Neil Lennon as great coach following Manchester United scare. Report by Ewan Payton. Scott McTominay was full of praise for former Celtic manager Neil Lennon after last night's close-fought Europa League encounter at Old Trafford. The Scotland international scored in stoppage time to seal victory for Manchester United against Omonia Nicosia. The Cypriots ran the Premier League giants all the way until the midfielder scored in added time to break the hearts of their 5,000 travelling fans, the players, and of course Lennon. United totally dominated the match, recording a whopping 33 shots on goal. But Omonia defended resolutely and very nearly snatched a point at the Theatre of Dreams, which would have been one of Lennon's finest results in his management career. However, while the Red Devils won, McTominay recognised Lennon as a great coach in what was nearly another European slip-up for Erik ten Hag's side. He said, "We knew we needed to win the game, but they'd be fired up also. Neil Lennon is a great coach and no games like this are ever easy. Everyone is pleased with the result. You have to be patient sometimes. Their goalkeeper was a different class, but we created enough chances and deserved to score in the end. It's a massive goal because we need to win the group." Report by Ewan Payton. Evening Times Sport, October 14. Neil Lennon in big European Games admission. Report by Ewan Payton. Neil Lennon was just moments away from masterminding one of his greatest ever results as a manager. Omonia Nicosia had Manchester United sweating at Old Trafford as the Cypriot side very nearly ran the Premier League giants all the way to the end of their Europa League encounter. However, a late injury time winner from Scott McTominay sealed a much-needed win for United in the group stages. Having held the global giants at goalless all the way until the 92nd minute, it was heartache for Lennon and his players, who were visibly dejected. But Lennon admits, after his last Celtic exit, he wasn't sure if he'd enjoy any more big nights in Europe like he did on Thursday evening. Drawing comparisons with his greatest ever result as a manager, beating Barcelona in the Champions League, Lennon said, "We were a minute or so from the greatest result in the club's history. I'm so proud of the players, especially my goalkeeper, who was world class. We defended heroically. It was wave after wave of attack. If we'd got the draw, it would have been up there with Barcelona. That's not how I want my teams to play, sort of digging in and just seeing it out. But I never thought I would coach here as a manager after some great times at Celtic and other clubs. It's been a thrill." Report by Ewan Payton. Evening Time Sport, October 14. Ex-Liverpool star claims it's not Rangers' fault they're out of their depth. Report by Ewan Payton. Rangers and Celtic are clearly out of their depth at championship level. That is the view of former Liverpool and Newcastle defender Jose Enrique. Rangers suffered a 7-1 pasting at the hands of the Reds, while Celtic also exited the group stages after another loss to RB Leipzig. It looks likely that both teams will finish bottom of their sections. But Enrique caveated his opinion by claiming that it's not Rangers and Celtic's faults they can't compete at the elite level of the Champions League. He told Midnight, "In the first half, Rangers were not out of their depth. Then in the second half, and at home, it was different. But I don't think you can compare. In the Champions League, the biggest teams are there, and occasionally Celtic and Rangers can spring a surprise. But normally this is the real world, and this is what happens. When Rangers have a good player, if they can sell him, they sell him. Celtic are the same. For Liverpool, it's not that way. For Napoli, it's not that way. Or if they sell, they buy big again. It's a completely different world, so it is what it is." Calvin Bassey, a really good defender, went from Rangers to Ajax for around £20 million. So when you take out their best players, it's very difficult for them to sign better players and stay competitive. Some years there is a surprise, but it's normal for them both to go out early. The former Reds player also reflected on the game in more detail, picking out hat-trick hero Mo Salah for special praise. He added, "In the first half, the team was still lacking in confidence. You could see they were trying, but you could see it wasn't happening. Then in the second half they destroyed them. You can't really compare Liverpool with Rangers, so it wasn't a massive test. But the test is coming at the weekend now against Manchester City. But I think it will be good for players like Mo Salah to score goals like that, giving him confidence, and Gomez starting at right back because Trent is out, which is great for getting his confidence in that position. Cavallo was also good, so was Firmino, and Darwin Núñez scoring will give him confidence too. So there are a lot of positives. Apart from the result, it was about giving players that confidence. 4 or 5 months ago, they were fighting for all the honours, and now they are suddenly bad players. They're not." For Mo Salah, the big change for me was that he was playing more of a central role. But with Darwin now, it has changed for him. But hopefully, with this hat-trick, he can get his confidence back. But a massive test is against Manchester City. Report by Ewan Payton. Evening Times Sport, October 14. Rangers defender could be set for January loan. Report by Ewan Payton. Ridvan Yilmaz may look for a loan move in January if his lack of game time continue. That's according to former Ibrox defender Alan Hutton. The ex-Scotland and Tottenham fullback is surprised that the Turkish international has barely seen any first-team action. The left-back only has 2 starts to his name against Kilmarnock and Queen of the South. The 21-year-old was signed for a significant £3.5 million fee. So while Hutton reckons Yilmaz may potentially want a loan, he's certain that the defender will prove his worth in the long run, having penned a 5-year deal. He told Football Insider, "It is a strange situation. I think Rangers put out a lot of money in transfer fees to bring him in. I think it has taken him a little bit longer to settle. We're going to see more of him, hopefully, in the coming weeks. There are a lot of games coming up, so there is opportunity for him to shine. I think if it goes the way it is going, and Barisic is going to be a regular starter, then he might look to go out on loan. But something in the back of my mind tells me that Rangers have paid all this money for him. They are going to try and get him into the team. Hopefully, in the upcoming weeks, we will see a little bit more of him, and he can prove his worth to Rangers." Report by Ewan Payton. Evening Times Sport, October 14. Tavarny addresses Rangers chucked in the towel claim. Report by Chris Jack. James Tavarny knows that the questions that will be asked of Rangers in terms of their tactics, their quality, and their physicality in the aftermath of the Champions League humbling against Liverpool. But the Ibrox captain insists it is wrong to query or doubt the mentality of Van Bronckhorst's players, as he denied Rangers had thrown in the towel during their Group A hammering. Rangers had reason to dream when Scott Arfield fired them into an early lead against the Reds, but it would turn into a nightmare occasion as Liverpool showed their class in emphatic fashion. Roberto Firmani netted twice before Darwin Núñez made sure of the win. Once that was done, Mohamed Salah added a shine to the scoreline with a sublime hat-trick, and Harvey Elliott ensured the record books were rewritten as Rangers crashed to a humiliating 7-1 defeat on home soil. Tavarny was called for a UEFA doping test at the whistle and was denied the opportunity to front up in public post-match. On a difficult day, after another difficult night, he took the chance to dismiss a theory and express his remorse. Tavarny said, "We obviously apologise. We never want to lose to that kind of scoreline to anybody, no matter what team it is. We have worked so hard to get to this point. You see the away game, it was 2-0, but we had a chance down there and limited them to 2 set pieces. But to concede 7 at home in front of your own fans is never good enough. You never want to see that. Obviously, you can take the positives out of the first 45, and then it's 55 minutes before they score again. But it's the Champions League. We are proud to be competing with these teams, but we need to work hard and look at the things we have done wrong going forward. Never once would I look at my teammate and know that they'd chuck in the towel. It's simple. Liverpool made 3 substitutions in Jota, Salah and Thiago, all world-class players, and they caught us trying to play football in the wrong areas. They capitalised on it, and that's the difference. They are world-class players, and if you give them a chance or a sniff, 8 times out of 10, they have a chance of taking it. That's what they did. Boss Van Bronckhorst could provide few clues as to where it all went wrong in the immediate aftermath, as he came to terms with a defeat that has raised huge questions over his future once again. The Dutchman revealed the home dressing room was overcome with an air of silence once his players trudged back up the tunnel and left behind a chorus of boos from an irate support. Rangers have been on the wrong end of heavy defeats before. This one was the most damaging and damning of them all. Tavernier said, "You never want to lose a game, and you never want to lose a game to those margins. It's something that we are definitely looking at. We are always trying to do the positive things, the right things, and we are trying to play our game the way we can. There are obviously risks to that, and Liverpool capitalised on it. Ajax did as well, and obviously Celtic, and it's something you never want. But we will learn from it, and it will only make us stronger. We always do a debrief after games. Win, lose or draw, we have a chat. We will take the positives and negatives out of games. If we win, we will still take the negatives out of it and try to learn from it, correct it, and make ourselves better. This was another one, and it was a meeting to go over the game. As you can imagine, emotions are high after the game, but we have looked over the game, analysed it, and looked at what we can work on. We take it into account and we work on it. The mood around Ibrox was very different when Arfield rounded off a lovely attacking move with a fine finish and put Rangers deservedly ahead in the night. Van Bronckhorst had targeted a point to keep their campaign on track. As it transpired, the second Liverpool showdown spiralled out of control. Continued Tavernier, "We are disappointed with the scoreline. I felt we competed really well in the first half. We got ourselves in front and really limited their chances. But when it gets to the final whistle and you see the scoreline of 7-1, you just feel disappointed. When you give them the chances that we did with the quality they have, we tried to limit it, but we didn't do good enough in that aspect. We went in 1-1 at half-time, and we were really positive. We wanted to continue doing what we did in the first half. They sort of dropped back a bit and set the traps for us when we tried to push a bit more, as obviously the space was there. With the attackers they have, and the pace they run at, it obviously made it difficult for ourselves. The process of attempting to move on and put the performance and the result behind them started yesterday as Van Bronckhorst's side regrouped at Auchenhowie. The trip to face Motherwell on Sunday now carries even greater significance. Another stumble is unthinkable for a boss and squad that are under the spotlight. Said Tavernier, "Any defeat or draw at this club is a hard one to take. The benefit is that we have a game around the corner at the weekend. We are coming off the back of 2 good league performances. It's about dusting ourselves down, getting it out of our system, and we will definitely do that. We obviously wanted to get the big group in the Champions League, test ourselves and learn from it. But it's always disappointing, no matter if you lose 1-0 or by the margin from the other night. We just have to brush ourselves off, look forward to the weekend, and put in a really good performance." Report by Chris Jack. Evening Times Sport, October 14. Tavernier makes Connor Goldson prediction. Report by Chris Jack. James Tavernier insists vice-captain Connor Goldson will still make his voice heard at Ibrox as he faces up to a period out of action this term. The centre-back was forced off during the first half of the defeat to Liverpool on Wednesday night and had to watch on as Giovanni Van Bronckhorst's side crumbled in the Champions League. Rangers shipped 6 goals after the break as Roberto Firmino completed his brace and Darwin Núñez and Harvey Elliott netted either side of a stunning 6-minute hat-trick from Mohamed Salah. The loss of Goldson compounded a miserable night for Van Bronckhorst, and the Englishman was seen leaving the stadium on crutches after suffering a rare injury setback. Goldson has been a reliable and robust figure throughout his Ibrox career and has barely missed a training session or match as he has become a stalwart on and off the park. Rangers will now have to bounce back from another European embarrassment without the presence of one of their key men, and there are also fitness doubts over defensive partner Ben Davies in the aftermath of the Reds' clash. But skipper Tavernier has no doubt that Goldson will have a significant part to play as he attempts to rally his side to salvage their pride in Europe and build some momentum in the Premiership title race before the World Cup break. Said Tavernier, "Look at all the Champions League defeats we have had. We have always come back into the league and put on a really good performance. It's the Champions League, and it's a great bonus for us as players and the club, and we want to try to do our best in it. But our full main focus is the league and the domestic cups. Connor will be a big miss, but he is in and around the building, and I am sure he will be around the changing room, handing out his voice. We have great leaders in the squad. We know what it takes. We demand of each other, and we will continue to do that." Report by Chris Jack. Evening Times Sport, October 14. Kieran Tierney opens up on familiar pressure. Report by Ewan Payton. Scotland star Kieran Tierney admits the pressures of being top of the tree at Celtic will stand him in good stead for Arsenal's potential title tilt this season. The Gunners are top of the Premier League so far this campaign. After 9 games, the North London club sit proudly at the summit, with free-scoring Manchester City hot on their tails, only 1 point behind. It is a position that Arsenal have rarely found themselves in over the last 15 years. And while the campaign is only in its early stages, this time last year the Gunners were sitting 10th, so the progress shown under Mikel Arteta is evident. Former Hoops defender Tierney insists nobody is getting ahead of themselves, but pointed out that his previous experience could come in handy. He said, "It's only been 9 games, and you can't say anyone is anything after 9 games. If you look at last year, we were down in the table, and we climbed our way up, so there's a long way to go, and there's no point in even thinking like that. You want to stay at the top, of course. I've got a bit of experience at Celtic when we were expected to be at the top and stay on the top as well. So it is familiar in that way for me that the pressure is on you to stay there. The other teams are chasing you, and we want to keep that going as long as we can." Tierney has found himself in and out of the team this season after the summer signing of Alexander Zinchenko. Tierney has also had to contend with small injury knocks in the opening part of the season, which has dented his chances in the first team. He added, "It's been tough. I missed pre-season coming back from an injury, and the first game I played in was the Palace one. That was the first week of training that I had. I've just been trying to get minutes here and there, so it's been a tough start. But whether I'm first, second or third choice, I'm just going to keep working hard and see where it takes me. I wouldn't say competition motivates me more, as whether I'm the only left back or there's 5 left backs, I'm still motivated to play and to do well. Day to day, nothing changes in my life. If I'm playing or not, I'm just working as hard as I possibly can. I train hard, and the manager calls on me, I'm ready. I want to play every game possible. When you don't play, like all footballers, you're disappointed. But when you get your chance, you just need to make sure you go and take it. Report by Ewan Payton. Evening Times Sport, October 17. Monday kick-off. Danger still lurks with VAR's introduction. Report by James Morgan. And so VAR is almost upon us. There have been calls for patience during the bedding-in period, something which of course is not exactly in abundance among Scottish football supporters who see conspiracy theories at every turn. Certainly, when James Sands remained on the pitch for a blatant red card offence during Rangers' 4-0 win over Ross County in August, it left those watching it scratching their heads in disbelief. The introduction of VAR to the SPFL Premiership, which will make its debut on Friday night for the game between Hibs and St Johnstone at Easter Road, is a welcome step towards reducing the number of times referees get decisions wrong, or so we are told. When VAR is spoken of, there is almost a sense that it is something intangible, an all-seeing eye that arbitrarily dispenses judgments from on high, rather than, an actual referee sitting behind a screen watching the replays. Indeed, often it will be the very same person who is lambasted for missing a stick-on sending off or stonewall penalty on any given Saturday, who might be sitting in the VAR booth in an office in an industrial estate off the M8 the following weekend. In short, human error. And there is another debate that might suggest incompetence is a better description, will never be fully eradicated from the decision-making process. There was near universal approval from Premiership managers last week, and it will be useful to remember that positivity when they inevitably start complaining about VAR, although the odd one or two did hint at potential problems. Callum Davidson hit the nail squarest on the head. The St Johnstone manager joined in with the rest of his managerial colleagues by welcoming the new technology, but he also pointed out the main problem with VAR. I think there's still contentious rules which make it still difficult. Davidson has a sound point. The laws of the game defy logic at times, as if devised by people who simply have no grasp of what it is to play football. Handball remains a minefield, as does certain overzealous tackling, such as the stamp on a player's ankle, which in recent weeks, in leagues that do have the technology, has seen some players dismissed, while others have escaped with a booking. A penny for that former Rangers player's thoughts. A few years ago, I was at Ibrox to watch Rangers bounce back from 2 goals down to beat Sporting Braga in a Europa League group match. I was in the company of a former Rangers player who, while delighted at the result, was ultimately of the opinion that the side on the pitch lacked the characters necessary to win anything. It was a particularly striking observation, given what had just unfolded on the pitch. A season later, of course, Rangers proved that theory incorrect, but the more I think back to his words, I'm struck by how close to the mark he was. This was a person who had been in that dressing room and saw firsthand some of the players who remain regulars in the side, players whom he felt were not up to the standard required in terms of mentality. Of particular interest would be his thoughts on what he made of James Tavernier's comments, in which he observed that "I'd never once look at any teammate and say they would chuck in the towel," in the aftermath of the 7-1 defeat by Liverpool at Ibrox last Wednesday night. Brown, one of a handful, still flying the flag for Scotland. Scottish women's teams had their participation in the Champions League ended pretty early this season. Glasgow City, who had been as far as the quarter-finals in 2014, could not make it out of a pre-qualifying tournament that the club hosted at Petershill Park, while Rangers, who did manage the feat with victories over Ferencváros and PAOK, promptly succumbed to Portuguese champions Benfica in the second round of qualifiers for the group stage. While Scottish club participation might have ended there, it did not spell the end for a number of Scots playing in the tournament. There's Erin Cuthbert at Chelsea, Caroline Weir at Real Madrid, Jen Beattie and Kim Little at Arsenal, and then there is Fiona Brown at Rosengard. Rosengard aside, the aforementioned clubs are all affiliated to heavyweight European outfits, but don't be fooled by a name. Rosengard were formed by the board of Malmo in 1970 and are the most successful women's side in Sweden, and Brown is a key member of the side. Standing in their way of a place in the knockout stage are holders Barcelona, Rangers conquerors Benfica and Bayern Munich, whom the Swedes face in their Group D opener on Wednesday night. Smith visa issue is a shambles for Warriors. Plus ça change, Glasgow Warriors. The Scottish pro rugby side, who seem to break out in an allergic rash every time they go away, play the second leg of their South African adventure on Saturday in what is likely to be another fraught encounter on foreign soil. Emirates Lions aren't quite as mighty as the Sharks side that sunk their teeth into the Warriors before gobbling them down in one go at the weekend, but they will still fancy themselves for a win. Perhaps it is a tad reductive to boil Glasgow's efforts down to a heavy reverse scoreline against a virtual Springboks 15 in tough conditions, especially when they remained competitive for 50-odd minutes and actually took a 7-0 lead and further spurned an opportunity to edge in front when missing a conversion just after the interval following Thomas Gordon's second try of the match. Losing away to Sharks is hardly groundbreaking stuff for a Glasgow side that lurched from one disaster to another on their travels since January, but questions should be asked of the administrative botch job that means they find themselves in South Africa without a head coach as a result of the visa problem, which denied Franco Smith the chance to travel to his home country to lead the team. What's on TV? Scotland play their second Group B match of the T20 World Cup against Ireland in Hobart on Wednesday, Sky Sports Cricket 5 a.m, by which time they will already know what they need to do. Their opening match was against West Indies in the early hours of this morning, if they are to have a chance of progressing to the Super 12 stage of the tournament, with 2 teams qualifying for the second stage of the tournament out of the 8 teams competing in the first round. The experts say Scotland are undercooked for the tournament, with just 2 matches under their belts by way of preparation, and those were 2 resounding defeats by New Zealand. Nevertheless, the mood in the camp is one of optimism, following an impressive showing at this stage of the previous edition of the tournament, held last year, during which they posted wins over Bangladesh, Papua New Guinea and Oman. 1. The number of victories Glasgow Warriors have managed in their last 11 away games. Report by James Morgan. Evening Times, Sport, October 17. Glance back in time to old Tom Morris and the birth of the Open. Report by Nick Rodger. Things were a bit different back in 1860. Old Tom Morris had no concept of health and safety, chuckled the Prestwick secretary Ken Goodwin, as he gazed out on Morris's 12th hole layout that's been recreated to mark the 150th Open celebrations. This particular course, used for that very first staging of golf's most cherished championship in Ayrshire all those years ago, has more criss-crosses than the checks on old Tom's bonnet. With players mingling here and balls flying there, a box-ticking summary from some stern-faced, tut-tutting, clipboard-wielding risk assessment officer would probably put the course on a par with a beachhead under heavy mortar fire. There's a part of it we jokingly call the killing zone, added Goodwin with a wry grin. But more about that later. While July's Open at St Andrews was the centrepiece of the R&A's 150th festivities, this Monday, that's today, October 17, will mark the true anniversary of the championship's birth in its Prestwick cradle. On that autumnal day of fitful sunshine, back in 1860, 8 of the country's best professionals, 7 Scots and 1 Englishman, gathered for 3 birrows around the 12-hole course to determine a successor to the late Alan Robertson, who was widely regarded as the best golfer on the planet. Teeing off at high noon, Morris hit the first ball. They zipped through 24 holes, nipped to the Red Lion pub for lunch and a couple of libations, and returned for a final circuit of 12. The 36 holes were all done and dusted in a sprightly 4.5 hours. In those days, players did not undertake meticulous scrutiny of the yardage book or perform elaborate pre-shot routines that resemble the mating rituals of the greater sage grouse, like they do now. 9 years before that first championship, old Tom had laid out the original Prestwick links in his own style. Said Goodwin, he would look for good places to put greens, and he'd take a bundle of feathers with him. Once he'd found a good place, he'd put a feather in the ground. Then he'd wander off and find another place. Tom didn't walk in straight lines. He criss-crossed. If there was a sand dune in the road, it was up to the golfer to negotiate it. You either went over it or round it. I'm not sure if it's true, but it suggested old Tom had 2 shovels, a wheelbarrow, and a navvy as his earth-moving equipment. The current custodian of the links, head greenkeeper Dave Edmondson, had a bit more heavy machinery to work with as he set about reinstating 5 greens, shearing away long grasses, and moulding special teeing areas to replicate the original routing of this treasured golfing antiquity. Said Goodwin with a smile, Old Tom's mantra was sond, sond, and mere sond. And given the amount of sand Dave put down, he's obviously followed that too. To prevent players being clattered and battered by shots hurtling hither and yon, caddies and members have been trained up as walking marshals to usher groups safely around the course. They wear reinforced caps, have walkie-talkies to keep abreast of movement, and utilize high-tech neon torches flashing green or red to signal whether the coast is clear or not. What were we saying about that killing zone again? The most interesting hole is the 6th, noted Goodwin of this eye-opening intersection. If you stand on the tee, you have the 1st, the 5th and 12th crossing immediately in front of you. When you get further down, you have the 2nd, 7th, the 9th and the 10th to the side. When you get to the green, you have the 3rd hole. That's just a flavour of it. Regular readers will be delighted to know then that your correspondent, armed with a hickory set of mashes, niblicks, jiggers and cleeks, emerged unscathed from this wonderfully quaint and quirky step back in golfing time. Well, not quite. On the 1st, a mighty 578-yarder, where old Tom's son, the great young Tom, made a quite astonishing 3 during the Open of 1870. I thrashed, swiped, skittered and hoiked my way to a 10. It wasn't the only double digit. All in all, I like to think I cobbled together a fairly solid round that was sullied by a solitary par. It wasn't a day for worrying about scoring though. It was a day for wallowing in Prestwick's glorious history, says Nick Roger. Evening Times Sport, October 17. Souness set to leave Sky Sports as pundit. Report by Aidan Smith. Rangers legend Graham Souness is set to leave Sky Sports as a pundit, according to reports. The former Ibrox manager has worked for the broadcaster for over a decade, but it is now understood he will step down at the end of the 2022-23 Premier League season. According to The Athletic, Souness in the past has penned 3-year contracts with Sky, alongside the likes of Roy Keane and Jamie Redknapp. But the outlets say he recently just signed a 1-year deal that would see him end his relationship with Sky next summer. The 69-year-old recently joined TalkSport and has appeared alongside Jim White and Simon Jordan live on air. Meanwhile, Motherwell's Stuart McKinstry felt Rangers defender Leon King was fortunate to escape a red card for scything him down towards the end of the Ibrox side's 2-1 win at Fir Park. As the Steelmen chased an equaliser, the on-loan Leeds winger was brought crashing to the ground by the Rangers defender in the 87th minute as he attempted to get himself clear on goal. Said McKinstry, "In my opinion, it could have been a red. If he didn't bring me down, I was through on goal. There is all that stuff about someone covering, but he knew what he was doing. I felt it could have been a sending off. The referee said there was someone covering, but I was on the floor and couldn't really see. All I know is it was a sore challenge and it could have been worse." Report by Aidan Smith. Evening Times Sport, October 17. Van Bronckhorst makes Rangers improvement admission. Report by Chris Jack. Giovanni Van Bronckhorst has targeted improvement in every area after seeing Rangers bounce back from their defeat to Liverpool with victory over Motherwell. Goals from Malik Tillman and John Lundstrom were enough to secure the 3 points at Fir Park, as Stuart McKinstry's speculative late free kick proved in vain for the Steelmen. Rangers were under huge pressure to perform following the fallout from their Champions League humiliation at Ibrox in midweek, and it was a largely lacklustre showing in Lanarkshire. A much-needed win as the main positive to take, but Van Bronckhorst knows his side must raise their game once again as Rangers attempt to build some momentum in the Premiership title race. Van Bronckhorst said, 3 points. It was vital to us to win this game. I think first half we started well and had 2 great chances to score the first goal, but we didn't. After that, we were not in the game as we wanted. Second half, we did much better and scored 2 goals, which will give you a cushion. In the 15 minutes before time, they equalised and make the 2-1 with a free kick from that side in the top corner. It happens maybe only one time out of 30 or 40 tries it went in. After that, we had to dig deep and make sure we battled for the win, and we did that. Really pleased with the points today. I think we need to improve in every area. That is obvious. The performance we had today overall was not as convincing as the previous wins in the league. We need to improve that. The build-up in the first half, we couldn't come into the next phase as we weren't good enough in our build-up, not quick enough, and not trying to get a free man in midfield. I think we were too slow in our passing and movement. Second half we did much better, and of course with Stephen coming on it helped us to control the game. In the end, with the 2-1, we need to change gears as well. Report by Chris Jack.
And that was this week's Glasgow Times Sport podcast, normally recorded in our studio at the Bishopbriggs Media Centre, currently recorded from our volunteers' homes with the publisher's kind permission. Thanks for listening.